There we go. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Horse's Mouth Live. I am Horse's Mouth's Doug Pierce. Thank you so much for joining us today. And today we've got kind of a special treat because Ellen Rogin, my guest today, is on the other side of the table. She's usually the one who does the interviewing. So today we're going to talk about mindfulness and how mindfulness and mindfulness meditation can help you in your life and in your business. So as I mentioned, my guest today is Ellen Rogin, and Ellen is a self-styled abundance activist who outlined her success roadmap in her New York Times bestseller, Picture Your Prosperity, Smart Money Moves to Turn Your Vision into Reality. And Ellen, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, I love it always, and I love to see you on the camera too.
Yeah. It's kind of strange being on the other side of things, but okay. So I wanted to start off today, Ellen, because defining mindfulness and how it relates to meditation, because I feel like mindfulness is one of these things that just it's kind of like a buzzword that gets thrown around. Could you talk a little bit about like what you mean when you say mindfulness and how it relates to meditation?
Yeah, and especially people, you've probably been hearing a lot about this during COVID because people have been trying to give people ideas for how to feel better and be more calm in this challenging time for many people. So the most simple definition of mindfulness is being aware, just being aware, noticing. And there's lots of ways that you can do that. You can practice mindfulness just in your everyday life, like an integrated practice, kind of like when you're exercising and you park your car far away and you walk where you're going. You can practice it just by noticing your breath, and we can talk later about some simple ways to practice mindfulness. Or it can be more of a dedicated practice, and it's a type of meditation. So I make the analogy, just like there's all different kinds of ways of working out. You know, maybe you like kickboxing or Zumba or weightlifting. There's all different ways you can practice meditation. And one way to practice mindfulness and one type of meditation is mindfulness meditation. And there's within that, not to make this more so super complicated, but there's a bunch of different ways you can practice mindful meditation. So the simplest definition is really just being aware and noticing.
Okay, and what are the benefits of this? Like, what's kind of like the reason somebody might want to implement this in their life and as part of their day to day?
There's been a huge explosion in actual scientific research in the last 10 to 15 years since they've had the ability to scan people's brains in terms of the benefits of meditation and mindfulness. And again, it depends on the kind of meditation you do, the area of your brain it can impact. But one of the things they found is it's helped people go from autopilot to aware. So that reaction that we just have to things, to just having a pause and having a more aware reaction. The story I think of where it's so easy to be on autopilot is right by my house there was a bridge, like a viaduct they were doing work on a couple summers ago. And I've gone to the same office for 20 years and gone pretty much the same way the entire time. And when I would drive to the office, if I'd hit the construction, it was easy. I would just take a right turn and it didn't really take me any longer to get to the office. But on the way home, it was like 5 minutes more if I forgot they were doing the construction, which doesn't sound like that long, but my commute's like 12 minutes. So it was a long time. So the first time that I came back home, I was like, oh, I forgot they're doing construction. And the second time I'm like, oh, I can't believe it. I forgot again. And like the third, fourth, and fifth time, I kept running up against this and I was swearing like it was the viaduct's fault.
Right.
But it's because I was doing the same thing. I've done it the same way. There was no awakeness, no awareness. I was so on autopilot. And I think it's so easy to be like that in our lives. And that was a simple example that didn't hurt anyone else. But you can think about maybe the way you react to someone in your life that isn't, not aware. It's just, this is your reaction. You're sure they're going to be a certain way. And so you're on autopilot with that. And it can the opposite side of being more aware helps you build relationships. It helps you come up with a more thoughtful response. So that's some of the things it can do. It can also reduce stress, improve your health. Science has shown all sorts of incredible ways that this can actually benefit you. And you don't have to be a monk practicing this for, 30,000 hours. A regular practice within even, 8 weeks or shorter than that, some studies have shown 4 weeks, have pointed to some real benefits in your brain. Just one more point on this, Doug, that we have, in the last few years, they found that our brains are malleable, that there's this thing called neuroplasticity. And it used to think that, once you got past a certain age, you just thought the same way, like you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but they found that isn't so. And by practicing different types of meditation, you can actually rewire your brain to have a more effective response.
Okay, so let's get to maybe your personal story with mindfulness. What was there like a moment where you realized that you needed something like this in your life? Or I mean, how did you discover mindfulness?
I'd like to start with how I discovered meditation, because
Okay.
when I first started, I was practicing a different kind of meditation, and then we can go into how I found mindfulness, which is what I'm practicing now and really so appreciate. And always in my young adult life and adult life, I've been so curious about how we think about things, and how almost like it's magic when you can shift your thoughts, your reality changes. And whether it was with people's money when I was seeing clients or with my own success, was always fascinating to me. And back in I think I started practicing around 2005. And what I've been pretty aware of is when I hear something more than once, or especially 3 times, it's an indication I should be paying attention to it. And I had 3 different people tell me, Ellen, it'd be really great if you started a meditation practice. It'd be really great if you started a meditation practice. And at the time back then, the rabbi at our synagogue was offering a Jewish meditation class. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And he had actually a transcendental meditation practice since he was 15. And I think he thought it was weird to teach us TM being a rabbi. So he taught us Jewish meditation, which in some ways, now that I've actually learned TM, was very similar. But it was kind of a mantra-based meditation where he gave us, we called it a Hashem, which was a name of God, but like something that you'd say over and over to bring your attention to. Mm-hmm. And what I loved about taking a course was, I will tell you, it was really hard for me to start a meditation practice. Not so much the discipline of doing it, because I'm fairly disciplined. It's something that comes easy to me for things like eating well and exercise and stuff. Like that's not one of the things that has been a struggle for me. But when I started meditating, we'd go and he taught us, and then we'd have meetings. I think it was like 3 or 4 right after he taught us. And people would come and they'd share like, oh, it was like unicorns and butterflies. And I was like, is anyone else nauseous when they're doing this? I literally felt like I was going to throw up. And I think it was because I had so much built up stress that it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever done a cleanse, but where all the toxins come out and you feel crappy before you feel better.
Okay. Like where you're just drinking like a bunch of like lemon juice or something like that.
Yeah,
that type of thing.
Usually you feel worse before you feel better from
Right.
it. And I think, and if I wasn't in a class or didn't have an instructor telling me like, hey, that's totally normal, I think I would have quit. Mm-hmm. And so there is some benefits of really having a community and some discipline. There was some accountability versus starting and stopping because I was, I was going back to this class, and I tend to be a rule follower and want to do a good job. So I was meditating. And I did that, for pretty consistently. We were supposed to do it twice a day for 18 minutes. And then, I don't know, a bunch of years later, I learned transcendental meditation, which is, again, another style of meditation where they recommend 20 minutes a day, twice a day. And sometimes I do that, but more often than not, it's for sure once a day. I can't remember the last time I haven't started my day with meditation, at least 20 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer. Um, yeah. So that was the genesis of it. And it wasn't necessarily because I was in this big crisis, which sometimes that's when people start, they're so stressed out. But I will tell you, in times of major stress, it's been such a gift to have that practice.
And so, in terms of your business, did you start showing up to your practice like differently right away? Does it take a lot of time for you to get some of these benefits? Like, talk a little bit about how you already covered some of the general benefits, but for you personally, how did these benefits manifest in your life and in your business?
Yeah, I can't really remember if it was like, I'm sure it wasn't the next day, but I'll tell you lots of ways that it benefited. First of all, let me just start with at home. Like,
Hmm.
I have a strong belief that when I am calm, everyone around me is calm.
Hmm.
And back when I wasn't as disciplined of a meditator, um, if there was a day that started where I didn't meditate, all of a sudden my kids were crazy and there was like this in the house.
Hmm.
So I think that energy that I put out, that just calm energy, it's like having a sailboat go through the water versus a motorboat. It just was calmer, and now there wasn't a big wake behind me. So that helped. And same thing at the office.
Yeah.
I it wasn't like everything went perfectly in my practice. There was mistakes that happened. I had team members at the time who didn't always do everything perfectly. But that break between autopilot and aware, I could pause before I reacted. So instead of like being like, what the heck did you just do? I could pause and give a thoughtful response, and give some perspective, which is a much better way to be dealing with people, right? Than being reactive. I mean, who wants to work for somebody who's like, who was that guy on Bugs Bunny with the Tasmanian devil? Like,
Tasmanian devil, yeah.
no one wants to work with the Tasmanian devil, yet I think
Yeah.
when people get upset, they create this like whirlwind around them. So that's one thing that showed up, was with relationships and certainly being more present with clients. But I think the thing that struck me the most was how I was able to find solutions to difficult situations because I could get quiet. So I know that we always have the answers. We just can't always hear them because there's so much chatter. And I can think about a situation. We had done an annuity for a client, and there was a mistake on the application, and they didn't have all the benefits that I told them they would have. And it was a problem. And I called, my wholesaler, and I called the insurance company. It was past the time when we caught this, they could do anything. And I just kept going, okay, there's got to be a solution. I was quiet. I just had that belief, and I was able to come up with something that the client was really comfortable with. I was upfront with them. And to this day, that was a really long time ago. I'm still friendly with the wholesaler. And he's like, Ellen, you were the most calm advisor that I've ever met. And he brings up that story because other people would have been screaming at him or screaming at my team member that checked the wrong box or something. And that was not the only time that happened. So, gosh, like how much money and angst did that save us when we could think of a solution even when you didn't think there was one?
It kind of reminds me when you're in the shower and like an answer just like a solution just pops into your head to something you've been like worried about and you weren't actively seeking it. It just kind of just pops. It pops into
Yeah,
your head.
it's the same idea, right? Because you've
Yeah.
calmed yourself
Yeah,
down.
right.
It is exactly that, but by having a regular contemplative practice, you're creating the conditions for that to happen much more easily. The exact same thing.
And then so let's keep going because I know that like you don't just practice mindfulness meditation. You've actually now become trained in it. So and you go on like retreats. What led you to take that step?
Yeah. So It was actually just like an intuitive hit. I'd been going to conferences about being a mindful leader just because I was fascinated by it. I'd been to Wisdom 2.0 and I spoke there, which is this big mindfulness and biz technology conference. Um, and I realized in the speaking that I do, whether it's for end clients or for advisors, I'd always kind of touch on meditation as being a great tool. It's a great tool for managing your money because you can be more calm, or managing your business. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to get more information on this and just add that to my toolbox. So it wasn't like this big, huge plan, but I ended up going through the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute program, which was Search Inside Yourself was the mindfulness program that was started at Google. So it was designed for kind of engineers, and not that it's like detailed and boring, but it's really practical. And I like that. So there's all different ways you can practice, and it's all great. But what I loved about this program is there was a lot of brain research to show why it was so. There was a lot of micro practices, so how you can incorporate this into your life every day. Because the fact I sit in meditation at least 20 minutes a day doesn't mean you have to do that to get benefits at all. For some people, they'd be like, forget it. There's no way I'm going to make time to do that. Yeah, and then what ended up coming out of it, I explained before I was doing transcendental meditation or this other type of meditation. It really switched my practice up. And it's like, okay, I stopped doing Zumba and now I'm doing kickboxing, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. Or I'm doing yoga now and not doing kickboxing. It's a different style. But what I found was that it helped me through, when I sold my business, it was a challenging time in all sorts of ways. And this practice really helped me work through that and be more calm and be more present and see the opportunities behind it. One of the things we had to do to get certified was do at least a 7-day silent retreat. And so I did that about a year and a half ago, and I went out to Spirit Rock, which is a meditation center outside of San Francisco. And it was so fascinating and so hard in ways I didn't anticipate. So I could go a month. I could go 2 months without talking. It might not seem like that because we do a lot of talking here.
Yeah.
I didn't care about that. But what happens when you're silent that long is you really start to observe your thoughts. Like, what is the pattern of my thinking? And so that was, and I really had meditated my whole life to feel more calm and happy. And that's not necessarily the point of it. It's to just notice what's happening. It's not to fix something necessarily. And it wasn't always easy. I expected to be like all blissed out, and all of a sudden these feelings I hadn't thought about in a while or wasn't willing to think about were bubbling up because they needed to be. And so finding ways to process that. Sitting was actually hard. Like, I had every form of cushion and pillow, but actually sitting for that long, because it was like pretty much all day. We'd walk, we'd sit. Yeah, and I couldn't wait to get out of there. But in the end, looking back, it's like having a kid for any of the moms out there. Like, you forget pretty quick how awful it was because the benefits are so great.
Well, it's funny because I think a lot of people, when I think about that, doing that is almost like a form of torture, right? Isn't like solitary confinement like how they punish people in prison? I think a lot of people, that's would be uncomfortable just to, that's something you got to work up towards, I'd imagine.
Well, interestingly enough, there was people there who never really didn't have a meditation practice.
Oh, really?
There's instructors, and you can ask questions. So it's like you don't hear any talk, and there's people, and they cook these amazing meals for you. It was hard. You know what I noticed so much is, like, it's one thing when you were sitting in meditation or you were eating or they'd have jobs for everybody, you had something to do. It was the in-between times. Like, when we have a pause, what do? We pull this out, right? Our phone. Like, we're not quiet. I mean, by day 4, I'm like, please give me Netflix. Like, all I wanted was something else to entertain me besides just noticing my thoughts. And that was fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, we're so just deluged these days by distractions because, we've got the phone with all the social media apps or what have you, and then there's TV. There's just so many things to pull us away, to distract us, to keep our mind occupied. and away from, things maybe we don't want to think about, but we should.
And the
right?
benefit part is when you get quiet and you notice that those thoughts are just thoughts. They don't
Right.
necessarily mean anything. Like we put all this attachment to them and we make up these stories, but you hear this analogy a lot, but it's like clouds going by, or it'd be like if you watched, I live in the Chicago area, so they have the elevated train. If you're at a train stop, you can watch the trains go by. You don't have to get on every train, and your thoughts are like that. You don't have to follow every thought like it's the most important thing. But when you can get quiet like that and know those thoughts are going by, then like your thing about when you're in the shower, you have this solution or you have this great idea, then those things bubble to the surface and you can actually hear them. So that's the true benefit, is to like be so creative and inspired. Like I have, so many great ideas, not usually right when I'm sitting meditating, but I'll be like out for a run or listening to someone else's podcast or something. And all of a sudden this idea will come and I know that I can hear it because I've spent time being quiet enough.
You just got to like sink beneath the noise. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So Devin has asked in the comments, are there any apps or books you would recommend to someone starting out with mindfulness meditation?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Book, I actually really like the Search Inside Yourself book. It was written by this guy whose name is escaping me right now, but he was like the chief happiness officer of Google. And he, it's really easy to read. It's got all these little small practices. So it's a fast read. I would say that. And there's a bunch of apps now. The app that I use and have used for the last bunch of years is called Insight Timer. And when I first started, it was just my timer. And now there's like thousands and thousands of guided meditations on there. My husband's dealing with something right now that he's excited and challenged about at the same time, so not sleeping well. So we've been doing a lot of guided meditations at like 2 a.m. But, so there's ones that can help you sleep. There's ones that get you grounded. It's a great way to start versus just sitting there looking, focusing on your breath or a mantra, which are great too. It also has tracked, what did I look at this the other day? It was something like how many meditation sessions I've had. I think it's been at least 3,000 days with a meditation, or 3,100, and it tells me how many hours I've meditated. So it's kind of, they gamify it. So you feel good, how many days I've had in a row. But people use Headspace and Calm as well. Those are kind of the big ones. Insight Timer's free. I pay for it now because I've been a member so long and it pays the teachers on there, but you can get everything pretty much free on it. So that's my favorite.
And now's a great time to announce that next week we're actually doing a 5-day mindful financial advisor challenge in a Facebook group. So if you want to join that, go to horsesmouth.com/mindful advisor. So it runs from October 19th to the 23rd. And each day in the group at 12 o'clock Eastern, Ellen is going to be doing a guided meditation, giving some tips, answering some questions. So if you are interested in getting started with mindfulness meditation, now's your chance to get up and running and learn how to really implement it into your life. Or hey, if you've fallen off the bandwagon, now's a good time to get back on, right? Or just meet some other advisors who are into it and get some tips, right? So I'm really looking forward to that. So if you're interested.
Me too. We're going to share some really easy practices that you can try, because I think there are different ways that are going to resonate for different people. So, it'll be fun. I hope you will join us.
And then, so Devin says, thanks. I use the Peloton app and have been using the guided meditations for relaxation and sleep, but would like to branch out, and this will help.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Great. It's great. And even if it's, just even without using an app, if you just take a pause and just focus on 3 breaths and see if you can put your attention on it for 3 breaths. And here's something really important that I want to share. Meditating doesn't mean your mind goes blank and you don't think about anything. Our minds are always talking. Like it's pretty much impossible. I mean, maybe these yogis sitting in a cave can do that. So it's not that you get to that you never have a thought. It's that you notice you've had a thought and go back to whatever you were intending on paying attention to, whether it's your breath. Like I'm breathing. Oh, I have to go to Trader Joe's today. Oh, I just thought about that. I'm not thinking about my breath. And the actual act of meditation is noticing that you're not meditating and coming back. That's where the bicep curl is. Mm-hmm. So it's not that you're doing it wrong. You can't do it wrong. Like there's no way to mess this up. So just to know that and to be kind with yourself. And it's hard. I mean, there's times I'll sit there and the chime will go off and I'm like, oh my God, was I thinking about something else the entire time? Oh, well, that's what it was today. So, just a few breaths, or now I'm doing this course about your positivity quotient. And one of the things that the instructor's having us do is just notice, like if you put your fingers together and just notice the ridge on your fingers. And with such attention, you're noticing that. That was a moment of mindfulness to take me away from whatever I was thinking about or worrying about. It can really be that simple.
So maybe, I know we're going to be, you're going to be doing this in the group next week, but for somebody who is curious and wants to get started right away, what's, I don't think they're going to be doing, you're not going to suggest you could do what you do necessarily, but what's a easy way to start using mindfulness meditation in somebody's day to day?
Well, we can all do it right now. If you're listening to this or watching it, take a moment and look around wherever you are. If you're driving, it can be, safely, something in your car. I'm in my office now, you can look around and just notice something you haven't noticed before or in a long time. Right? So if I look around, I've got a picture on my wall hidden behind something that says, if you want to be happy, be. And there's a bee on it. Like that's been up there for years and I never look at it. And that is being mindful. You're just noticing. I love that simple definition. Maybe you're out on a walk. My husband and I have been walking a ton. And we'll be down a street we've been down. I'll be like, I've never noticed that house before. Like, how's that even possible? And so to just notice something, it's a really easy way to do this.
Great. That's excellent. And so any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, like this is a little bit random, but I've been focusing on this, and you and I talked about it a little bit before, but I was listening to a podcast on one of my walks the other day, and this guy who wrote a book I think it's called Breathe or Breath, something, I haven't read the book yet, was talking about the importance of breathing, like physiologically how important it is, and he was talking about breathing through your nose and how that's so good for your health, which I kind of knew, like I thought, well, you're filtering out toxins and stuff, but it's actually better for your blood pressure. It's better for your stress levels. It actually, this guy breathed through his mouth for a week and his blood pressure went up. And actually you work out, your strength is greater when you breathe through your nose. Now, as a runner, Doug, can you, for me, it's super hard to breathe through my nose the whole time I'm running. Can you do that?
Yes, at a certain pace, at a certain relaxed pace. But yeah, so many of the training manuals I've run have a section dedicated just to breathing and using, how many breaths per step you're taking as an indicator of your effort level and, how to run the appropriate paces based upon your breathing. And even we'll dedicate a text to teaching you an optimal way to breathe. So yeah, it's a big deal.
So it's helping you run, and you have to be mindful, right?
Yes.
Because you're paying attention to your breath while you're doing that.
And Ellen, that's actually, mindfulness is huge. Now that I think about it, mindfulness is huge to competitive running because a GPS watch, which is what most people use to track, your minutes per mile, your pace, and how you're doing. Most people are slaves to the watch, and they'll let the watch tell them when it's time to slow down, when it's time to pick up. But really, your body is the ultimate arbiter, knows, your effort level and what you can do on that day. And so learning to listen to your body and your exertion level, that's like what pros do, what pro runners do, you know. And it's a skill that you have to learn. And to be more mindful of your body and your effort level. And
so a beautiful way to practice in a way that you're already doing. If you're a runner or a walker, is to notice that.
To notice your breathing. Be mindful of your breathing. Yeah, absolutely.
And just like a little disclosure, the weird thing that I'm doing after listening to this podcast and my husband was making fun of me is to try to breathe through my nose while I sleep, because then I have all those hours of nasal breathing, and I've been taping my mouth closed. Like sometimes
really?
I would do other times. And it's like, I can't believe this. Like, I'm just, there's this person in our bedroom with her mouth tape closed, and you can buy special tape. I just used surgical tape, but it's really interesting how much easier it is once I got used to it. So I'm training myself to be better. Instead of being like a carp breathing through my mouth, I'm trying to breathe through my nose more.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, great. Well, so I'll just invite everyone again to join us for next week's challenge, and give mindfulness meditation a try and see if it works for you. Get some accountability and some of that gamification Ellen was talking about today. But go to horsesmouth.com/mindfuladvisor to join the group, and we'll see you next week. So I want to thank everybody